From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris here with you on a Wednesday, and I hope you survived the storms last night. A little bit rough out there, but I think fortunately we don't have any very serious injuries out there. And you know, whenever this happens, I always wonder, is my guest going to make it in this morning and join me? Because I can understand the storms and everything that's happening. But yes, our guest is here. We've got a great show, and we're going to open up the phone lines in a moment. But one of the fastest growing cities, as you know, in Tennessee, and a very happening place is Murfreesboro, all right? And as it continues to grow and it has one of our great universities, it comes with a lot of other issues as well. And I think the top of the list for most everyone, no matter where you live, is security and how safe you feel in your neighborhoods and all of that. So it comes down to, in these communities, the sheriffs as well as the police chiefs in the cities. And there's a new police chief in the city of Murfreesboro. I've been wanting to have him join us. He's been here now, I don't know, several weeks now, but he's just started on the job, and he's with us this morning to take your phone calls and talk about his vision for the future. And it's the new Murfreesboro Police Chief, Carl Durr. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Good to have you on.
It's great being here.
Pleasure. And with you, you've got your sidekick,
Yep.
Kyle Evans, of course. More people know him than me. He spends so much time on TV. He's the best PIO around, and it's good to have you on, Kyle.
Thanks. Good to be here.
As always. But yeah, we'll get into some of your phone calls and the like, but you know, as we start things off here, just at the top, Chief, it's interesting. In the interest of full disclosure, he and I are both from the same area, at least most recently where we last lived. You know, I grew up and went to college at the University of Oregon in Eugene. Right. You were the assistant police chief there.
Yes, I was assistant police chief, and it was a great opportunity in a great town.
Eugene, Oregon.
Yes.
Well, okay, how? And let's just say you were there 3.5 years as assistant police chief?
Yeah, I was there for 3.5 years. I grew up in southeast Florida in a town called Boca Raton in the West Palm Beach area.
I've heard of that, right?
And I worked for the, I started off with municipal policing, and then I went to the sheriff's office after 3 years. I started when I was 19 years old. Okay. So that's why I look
so you've been in law enforcement all your life. All right.
32 years,
30
yeah.
years. Wow, you still look young.
Yeah, well, thanks. And so then I worked at the sheriff's office, and one of my goals was to go back into municipal policing because they are two distinct different lines of work.
Sure.
And eventually I wanted to be a police chief. So all my mentors and different things, they told me at a certain point I need to get back into municipal policing, and that's when I looked at Eugene. And I have small kids, and I wanted to get out of South Florida after being there for so long. And
Eugene's a good place to raise a family.
Oh,
nice.
Absolutely. And South Florida, I mean, I was tired of hurricanes and different things like that.
After the storms we had last night, but nothing like that.
I slept through it, so I didn't even hear.
Yeah, so you're used to the storms in Florida. So and Eugene and Oregon, you don't get storms quite like that either.
No, it's a rarity to have lightning storms there.
Right.
So,
so what was it then? You're in Eugene, and your ultimate goal is to become police chief. You're assistant chief there. Where did Murfreesboro get on your radar, and how? And what did you know about it? And now that you're here,
yeah. Well, you know, one of the things that I always looked at is the future and where I wanted to settle down, as oddly enough as it is. And you know, Tennessee was always on my radar screen. Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, but Tennessee had some advantages with taxes and things like that for the long term for when you retire. And then my wife and I, after being in Eugene, we realized we were kind of isolated. It was a great town and everything, but Portland, we're city people, and so Portland was a 2.5-hour drive on a good day. And then, so we realized we needed to be closer to the city. So when Murfreesboro came up, I said, hey, it's in Tennessee. I had actually looked for property one time, and I almost bought property 15 years in Franklin.
Boy, you should have.
I know that. If I tell that story, everybody says the same thing.
Gosh, why didn't you? It's a boom town. And the thing is, Nashville is the heart of it, and it is one of the it cities. It's a very desirable place to live. A lot of people coming here. But then I've always said, everything that's building up around it, okay, Mount Juliet, where I happen to live, Murfreesboro, Clarksville, it's becoming a big metropolitan area, but Murfreesboro is grown by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's time now. I mean, even the police department has to address the growth. Your prior chief, Chrisman, the same way. It's changed. It's no longer a small town.
Right. No, and it's not. And so when I was looking to go out there, you know, it hit several criteria near Nashville, big cities, so we can go enjoy some of those items that happen in big cities. An airport, because we like to travel. My wife is from Denmark, so she goes back overseas every once in a while to see her relatives, and I enjoy going there. And so just getting around, and we have friends throughout the United States, so it's very tough traveling from the West Coast.
Sure.
And we just realized that we're more East Coast people and everything else. So when the job came open, I saw a growing agency, a really good department, and then my wife did the research because we have young kids. We have 2 boys that are 8 and 12 years old, and so where are we going to bring up these our kids? And when we looked into Murfreesboro, the school system here in Tennessee is great. The family client culture that's here in Murfreesboro and in Nashville and this whole area is just really wonderful. And so we were like, yeah, this is a place where we can grow as a family and raise our kids.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, you're right about that. It's a wonderful place. Kyle and I both have family here as well, and I have a lot of respect for the city manager, Rob Lyons.
Oh, yeah.
And I know he did a lot. I mean, there were a lot of very qualified applicants that applied for this job and coming in. Now, we're going to take phone calls throughout the show, and I want to get more into your philosophy, but we've just got to address the big issue. Gosh, welcome to Murfreesboro. This lands in your lap, the controversy over the arresting of the elementary school students. As we found out, we're learning more details about, not as many people as you thought were handcuffed, but there was some cuffing involved. I think, there was some outrage, and I think after the fact now, you've come out, you've been very forthcoming, Kyle has, and you have, about how you're going to address it. And I think a lot of people have some sympathy for you. You kind of fell into this. I mean, this was not, you're here, and then a few days in, boom, this story explodes. You really had nothing to do with it. But I think to your credit, and I think a lot of the critics now are coming forward and saying they're very impressed with the way you've handled it. Your take, what would you like to say about the situation right now? And I think most of our viewers probably are aware of it.
I guess, it was an opportunity to lead.
Okay.
I mean,
right off the bat.
Right off the bat. So I think what it gave me the opportunity, not only internally within the organization, that the officers, because they're looking at me like I'm the frozen caveman. I tell the story all the time. I'm the new police chief that's transported down into this organization from somewhere that I'm not a known entity here, and also with the community. And I think they got to say, when I sit there and say I'm about transparency, fairness, and consistency, I was able to demonstrate that that's what I'm about when I handled the situation. But it wasn't just me, it was my staff and everybody else. We all collected together as a team. And the biggest question I had is, I'm new to the community, how do I outreach to the community? It also gave me an avenue to work with a lot of pastors and stuff.
You've met a lot of them now just because. What's if you don't mind? I mean, I know there was African American pastors. There were some parents that were upset that really, and they made some good points, and they came out wanting to know what you were going to do. What have you learned from them, or what was the interaction like with them? And I know you've met with them several times.
They're deeply concerned about the way we police, and I think we see that across the country. The interaction with children, and what should that interaction be? And we can always get better with the way we handle things. We are, as law enforcement officers, we're human, and so we're not always perfect. And the thing is to acknowledge that and to learn through it, and how can we do it better next time? And hopefully other law enforcement agencies take a look and say, hey, let's look at our policies on how we do things, and as a nation, because that's what we're constantly doing. I know Kyle does that. We're constantly looking at situations throughout the country and saying, okay, are we addressing it the same way? So we learn from each other.
Okay, and were you going to say something, Kyle?
Well, just that. What an opportunity. Is very unfortunate, the circumstances behind it, but I think that the community and the police department have really come together, and we're going to move forward together. We're going to grow together, and I think that's just a sign as to the strength that Murfreesboro offers. Our citizens and our police, we all work together, and as Chief said, he's got kids, I've got kids. This is a community issue, and we all, as parents and members of that community, want to make sure that the right thing always happens and that we always do better.
Yeah, and to maintain a transparency, like you said. And I think to reflect on that, here in Metro Nashville, we have Chief Anderson, and someone I have a lot of respect for. And there have been some issues that come up, as it would be in any big metropolitan city, and they're very transparent, and he's straight up about it. I think you've probably met him, I'm sure, since you've been here, and he does a good job. The transparency is important. Now, as far as the issue at hand here, if a scenario like that comes up again, would you? Can you foresee a scenario whereby perhaps, and it's discretionary by an officer, that they would have to, arrest someone at a school, maybe a child, and possibly under a certain circumstance handcuff them? Or is this something where, there's other ways to do it?
Well, I think we have to take a look, and each individual situation is unique because we can give general guidelines. Hey, we prefer not to be handcuffed with kids. We prefer not to go in the schools. But there are going to be those times when, I'm aware of other situations where a child brought a gun to school at the age of 11 years old. I mean, we're going to have to go in the school and arrest that child. I mean, so there's, but again, it's like how generally should we be engaging the students, and when should we go in the schools to go do things?
Yeah, case by case.
Yes.
And I think we've learned from this last one. Listen, we got to take a break on that note. When we come back, more of our conversation. I want to get more into your philosophy. And I'm sure, with all the years you've been in the business, you have an idea of law enforcement, maybe what new ideas you may bring. And then we're going to take some phone calls. If you're on hold, stay there. If you want to join in the conversation, you know where to call. We'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us.